A stranger in time, imagine the blink of an eye, and a man from 50,000 years ago is standing in the middle of Times Square. His feet, calloused by a lifetime of walking barefoot across raw earth, now touch concrete. His eyes, trained to spot the flick of an antelope's tail on a distant horizon, are blinded by LED billboards and moving machines. His ears, once attuned to rustling grass or a predator's breath, are overwhelmed by sirens, engines, and language he cannot decode. He is human, just like us, and yet he would not recognize us. That's the twist of this thought experiment. He has the same brain as you, the same neurons that let you binge-watch a show, or write poetry or order sushi with a few taps. Those very same structures existed in him. But while your mind is wrapped in Wi-Fi and concrete, his was carved by survival. Every thought he had mattered. Every movement had consequence. His reality was fire, bone, and sky. Anthropologists confirm that anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, have existed in our current biological form for at least 200,000 years. The average Paleolithic brain, in fact, may have been slightly larger than ours today. But what's changed isn't our hardware, it's the world we built with it. Transport him here and he wouldn't just be confused, he would be overwhelmed, perhaps terrified. Not because he's primitive, but because everything that once ensured his survival, every instinct, every learned skill, would now be useless. He'd see glass boxes in the sky, people staring into glowing rectangles, food wrapped in plastic, water flowing from a hole in the wall. He'd hear music with no drumming hands and see humans walking past each other, with no eye contact, no acknowledgement. He would be in every way a stranger in time. The emotional weight of that disconnect isn't just his to bear, it's ours too. Because when we look at him, we're seeing the purest version of ourselves. Before nation-states, before apps, before electricity, a man whose life depended on memory, movement, and meaning, who sang not for fame but to remember the stars. And yet, despite the chasm of difference, there would be sparks of recognition. A child's laughter might make him smile. The sight of fire would feel familiar. Perhaps he would understand grief, joy, jealousy, the emotions we've carried like stone tools through every age. This is not a story of superiority. It's not about how far we've come. It's about perspective. That man is not our past. He is our foundation. And the more we understand his world, the more clearly we can see our own. Because maybe the real question isn't whether he would recognize us, it's whether we would recognize ourselves. Bodies rewired. If you stood face to face with a human from the Stone Age, not a brutish Neanderthal, but a fully modern Homo sapiens from 50,000 years ago, you might recognize the eyes, the hands, the shape of the skull. But beneath that surface, everything would feel off. Their muscles would ripple with lean efficiency, shaped not by gym routines, but by necessity. Every sinew earned through climbing, chasing, carrying, surviving. They moved constantly, not for fitness, but for firewood, food, and freedom. Their gait was wide and grounded, their stride purposeful. In contrast, your own posture might seem awkward to them, hunched by chairs, softened by couches, slowed by elevators and long hours of stillness. Anthropologists describe Paleolithic humans as robust, not bodybuilders, but naturally strong with dense bones and powerful ligaments. Their physicality was functional, not aesthetic. A 2020 study published in Nature found that their lower limb bones showed strength and structure more similar to that of modern-day athletes than sedentary civilians. Compared to them, our bodies have thinned, weakened, lightened. Evolution, influenced not by wilderness but by comfort, has trimmed away traits we no longer use. Even our jaws tell a story of change. Stone Age humans chewed through tough roots, raw meat, and unprocessed plants daily, using their teeth like tools. Their jaws were broad and their faces forward projecting, anchored by massive chewing muscles. Modern humans, our diets have grown softer, our chewing minimal. Over generations, our jaws have narrowed, leading to impacted wisdom teeth, orthodontics, and even sleep apnea. And the brain, that sacred organ we often hold as proof of our modern superiority, has subtly shrunk, not in intelligence but in sheer volume. Studies show that the average human brain today is roughly 10% smaller than it was during the Upper Paleolithic period. Why? Possibly because our environments changed. We no longer needed to memorize animal tracks, seasonal plant growth, or hundreds of square miles of landscape. Our ancestors had to be walking encyclopedias of survival. We have Google. The architecture of necessity collapsed under the weight of convenience. Metabolically, too, we've shifted. Stone Age humans burned thousands of calories daily just staying alive, hunting, fleeing, building, digging. Their bodies adapted to scarcity, to feast and famine cycles. Today, abundance surrounds us, and our metabolic systems haven't caught up. Diseases of excess, obesity, diabetes, heart disease are reminders that we've rewired our world faster than we've rewired our biology. We're the same species, yes, but we're not the same people. We've traded raw strength for fine motor skill, endurance for comfort, adaptability for specialization. We've become creatures built for artificial environments, temperature-controlled, pre-packaged, low-friction lives. So if you ever feel tired, sore, sluggish in your modern body, it's not weakness, it's context. You're wearing the blueprint of a survivor in a world with no predators. You haven't failed evolution, you've simply evolved for a different battlefield. Technology as a second skin. Imagine handing a smartphone to a human from 50,000 years ago. He turns it over in his hand, confused by its smooth, cold shell. He taps the screen, and it glows. A moving image, a voice trapped into glass, a map that shifts as he walks. To him, it would feel like sorcery, but to us, it's just Tuesday. Early humans lived by instinct sharpened into skill. They tracked prey not with tech, but with their eyes, their ears, and their memories. A broken twig, a bent blade of grass, a distant bird song each told us every day was a test. Observation wasn't optional. It was the difference between eating and starving, between living and being hunted. Today we outsource those instincts. A Paleolithic hunter could navigate 100 square miles with no tools but his senses. You get lost in your own neighborhood when your GPS dies. He could smell rain in the wind, spot danger in a ripple of water. We rely on apps to tell us the weather, traffic, what to eat, who to love. Our technology is miraculous, but it comes with a cost. We've wrapped ourselves in a second skin of machines and algorithms, a cocoon of convenience. Our phones remember birthdays so we don't have to. Our watches remind us to move because our bodies forgot how. Our food is hunted by corporations, packaged in plastic and tracked by barcodes. Our shelters are assembled with steel and glass, not instinct and stone. Anthropologist Amber Case calls us cyborgs, not because we've implanted chips into our bodies, but because we've offloaded our memory, attention, and survival skills into the tools we carry. Your smartphone is not a device. It's an extension of your nervous system. To a visitor from the Stone Age, our world would be dazzling and disorienting. He might see us move through glass doors that open by themselves, hear voices coming from invisible mouths, watch us speak to glowing rectangles instead of each other. He would wonder, when did humans stop using their eyes? When did we forget to listen? But perhaps the real question is, did we lose our instincts or just evolve new ones? Today's survival doesn't depend on spear throwing or fire starting. It depends on passwords, updates, and navigating a maze of artificial rules. We have instincts for screen swipes and social cues, for data overload and emotional detachment. Our tools don't just help us. They shape us. And yet, for all our innovation, we remain vulnerable. If the power grid failed tomorrow, if the satellites blinked out, if your phone went dark, would you know how to find food? Shelter, warmth, the second skin peels off easily. Beneath it, you're still human. The Paleolithic man didn't have our machines, but he was the machine, lost in language. They spoke with their eyes before they spoke with their mouths. A flick of the wrist, a guttural sound, the direction of a stare. These were the tools of Stone Age language. Communication was raw, visceral, born of necessity. It had to be. Every gesture could mean life or death. There's danger and food is near. Follow me. Their words were not written, not saved in memory chips or transcribed onto glass screens. Their words were breath, temporary, real. Now imagine one of them, a human like us, with the same brain, the same capacity for thought, waking up in our world, bombarded by voices from invisible sources, words flying from glowing rectangles, conversations layered with sarcasm, coded in slang, emoji-laced, and fractured across texts, videos, and tweets. To this Paleolithic soul, the babble would be deafening, not because they couldn't hear, but because the meaning would be buried under culture, a culture they never lived. Words that once had weight now multiply endlessly, losing shape and texture. Back then, language was tied to action. You pointed and you moved. You grunted and you hunted. Today we speak of things we may never touch, feelings we may never show, ideas we may never act upon. Language has become a world of its own, not a tool for survival, but an ecosystem of identity, humour, politics, and endless distraction. They would recognise tone. Anger still sounds like anger. Laughter still rises like smoke. But the layers of meaning, metaphors, irony, memes would feel like riddles. What is a Wi-Fi password? Why do people say I'm dead when they're laughing? Why does a yellow face with heart eyes mean love? Even our silence is different now. In the cave, silence meant alertness, listening. In a city, silence often means disconnection, avoidance, or the soft glow of a phone screen replacing a glance. Language, once a bridge between beings, has become a maze, beautiful, strange, overwhelming. To them, it might seem we've forgotten how to simply speak. And perhaps we have. The culture shock. Imagine stepping out of a firelit circle of 20 familiar faces, people you've hunted with, laughed with, cried with, and into the blinding blur of a modern city. Skyscrapers claw the sky, cars scream past, strangers rush by without meeting your gaze, lights flicker behind windows, each a life unknown, each a name unspoken. To a Stone Age human, this is not just overwhelming, it's unthinkable. They lived in tribes, small, bonded, intimate. Every face meant something. You knew who could be trusted, who told the best stories, who was quick with a spear or kind to the old. Social life wasn't optional, it was survival. Shared food, shared danger, shared joy, your place was known. You were seen. Now, we live among millions, yet often feel invisible. We scroll through endless digital faces, liking, commenting, passing judgment from a distance. We follow people we'll never meet, worship celebrities we've never spoken to, pour pieces of ourselves into curated profiles and wait for strangers to validate us. To a Paleolithic visitor, this would feel like sorcery. Talking to someone miles away, seeing a face in a glowing box, sharing a meal, alone, in silence, with their phone in hand. It's not just the tools, it's the rules. They would struggle to grasp why certain words offend, why people pose instead of participate, why we say I'm fine when we're not, why we spend hours watching other people live their lives instead of living our own, why solitude is a status symbol, not a sentence. They would miss the village, the familiar warmth of community, the safety of shared rituals, the comfort of being known deeply without explanation. Because their world was woven from relationships, not followers, not views, not digital footprints. And yet, here we are, globally connected, instantly reachable, and somehow lonelier than ever. A message can circle the earth in seconds, but it may never touch the heart of the person next door. In a world where we can speak to anyone, we often speak to no one. To them, this would be the greatest mystery. Not the technology, not the skyscrapers, but the silence in the crowd. They might ask, "Where is your tribe?" And we might not know how to answer. The food revolution. Once, food was a hunt, a gamble, a reward for patience and pain. It came with blood on your hands or soil under your nails. You chewed tough roots, gnawed fresh meat, cracked bones for marrow. Every bite was earned. Every meal, a celebration or a relief. Stone Age humans ate what nature offered, when it offered it. Berries in summer, tubers in winter, raw greens, roasted games, nothing packaged, nothing preserved. Just food in its purest form, full of fibre, fat and firelight. Fast forward to today, and a single supermarket aisle would feel like another planet. Bright boxes shout with artificial flavours, plastic-wrapped colours never seen in nature, sweetness without fruit, salt without sweat, meat without bone, and time no longer a barrier. You can feast in seconds, no hunt required, just microwave and consume. To our ancient ancestors, this would be magic, or madness. We've engineered abundance, but at a cost. Our guts, built for tough chewing and slow digestion, now struggle with softness and sugar. Our jaws, once shaped by sinew and struggle, now shrink for lack of use. The labour of eating has disappeared, but so has its balance. They rarely knew excess. We rarely know hunger. And so the body rebels. Obesity, once impossible, is now common. Type 2 diabetes, a whisper in their time, is a global roar. Allergies, heart disease, gut disorders, all born not from famine but from plenty. We eat more than ever and nourish less. Their food was rhythm and ritual, shared around fires, foraged with skill. Our food is often solitary, fast, distracted. We eat while driving, working, scrolling. Calories without connection. They might watch us with wonder. So much food, yet so little reverence. So many choices, yet so little satisfaction. We chase taste, not sustenance. We reward speed, not season. And in doing so, we've not just changed our bodies, we've changed our relationship with the earth, with each other, and with ourselves. They fed their tribe. We feed our cravings. And perhaps the most tragic shift. Food, once a story of survival, has become a story of struggle, of restraint, of guilt. Something they celebrated now brings us shame. To a Stone Age mind, food was life. It still is. But we've hidden that truth beneath layers of flavourings, logos and lifestyle trends. They would not recognise our meals, not the shapes, not the smells, not the rituals, or the absence of them. And maybe, just maybe, they'd ask, "You have everything, but do you still taste the world?" Death redefined. To die in the Stone Age was often sudden. A misstep, a fever, a deep wound that wouldn't clot. Death came fast, unannounced, and often young. Most didn't live past 30 or 40, not because they were weak, but because the world was unrelenting. There were no doctors, no surgeries, no sterile tools or second chances. A tooth infection could kill. A broken leg could mean the end. Even childbirth, the most natural act, was laced with peril. Life and death danced close, always side by side. They understood mortality not as a concept, but as a constant. It was in every hunt, every illness, every cold night. And yet they lived fully, not because life was long, but because it was fragile. Today we've rewritten the story. We vaccinate, operate, medicate. We transplant hearts, replace hips, decode genomes. A diagnosis that once meant death is now a beginning. We've stretched the timeline of life, not by inches but by decades. We no longer survive just to see another season. We survive to see our grandchildren grow, to retire, to reflect, to age. But this victory has its own price. Death hasn't disappeared, indeed. It's just been delayed, medicalised, pushed to hospital corners and hospice beds. It often comes not with a sudden gasp, but with machines humming and screens glowing, with decisions, with paperwork. To our ancestors, death was an event. Now it is a process. They looked it in the eye. We try not to speak its name, we dress it in euphemisms, shield children from it, tuck it into institutions. We live longer, but not always better. And aging, once rare, now expected. But with it comes questions they never faced. Dementia, chronic illness, end-of-life care. We've learnt to keep the body going, but not always the mind or the spirit. Longevity has become a goal, but at what cost? They buried the old with reverence, not regret. Because to reach old age was a triumph, a mark of wisdom, a feat of survival. Now we dread wrinkles, we fear frailty. We chase youth with creams, diets, surgeries, as if time were an enemy, not a gift. To a Paleolithic human, our version of survival might seem strange. We outlive danger, but not despair. We conquer disease, but not loneliness. We've built walls against death, but often find ourselves trapped behind them. And yet it's not a failure. It's evolution, a new phase. We've turned death into something less final, less feared. We give people time to love longer, to heal, to say goodbye. But the truth remains, we have not escaped death. We've only changed the path to it. And perhaps, if a Stone Age elder could speak across the ages, they'd ask, "You have the time we dreamed of, but do you use it to truly live?" Mind games. Early humans lived moment to moment. A rustle in the grass could mean a predator. A shift in wind might signal rain. Hunger drove movement. Fire meant safety. Every thought served a purpose. Survive. The mind was sharp, reactive, tuned to danger and reward in the real world. There were no plans beyond the next day. No endless loops of what if. No spreadsheets. No inboxes. The world was immediate, a pulse of instinct and reaction. But then we changed the world and forgot to change the brain. Today we worry about credit scores instead of cave lions. We panic over unread emails instead of famine. Our alarms don't warn of wild beasts. They remind us of meetings, rent, performance reviews. The threats aren't physical anymore. They're abstract, lingering, unkillable, and yet the brain still reacts as if it's in the forest. Heart racing, breath shortening, muscles tensing, but there's nowhere to run, no spear to throw, no shelter to build, just cortisol trapped in a body at a desk. We call it anxiety, panic, burnout, but at its core it's evolution glitching. Our ancestors didn't sit still for hours. They moved, climbed, foraged. Their minds and bodies worked together. Now we trap our minds in loops while our bodies atrophy in chairs. A predator in the bushes was terrifying, but it was real, and it ended. Deadlines don't end. Expectations don't bleed. And fear, when it has no outlet, becomes poison. We were built for short bursts of stress, not decades of it. Depression, insomnia, the numbing sense of being always on. These aren't signs of weakness. They're symptoms of a brain misfiring in a world it wasn't designed to process. A mismatch between hardware and reality. Because the modern world rewards abstraction, multitasking, endless thinking. But the mind, once shaped by firelight and animal tracks, can only bend so far. We simulate danger now. Horror films, video games, roller coasters. We crave stimulation because the real world feels dull and overwhelming all at once. Our ancestors had adrenaline because they needed it. We summon it just to feel something, and we wonder why we're tired. They had rituals to rest the mind, stories, songs, quiet walks under stars. Now we scroll, swipe, consume, compare. The mind never gets to be still, and when it breaks, we call it disorder. But maybe it's not broken. Maybe it's ancient, doing its best in a world of neon noise and never enough. Maybe what we call mental illness is, in part, mental defense against a system too fast, too artificial, too disconnected from the dirt and sun and sky we were born into. Early humans lived in the now, we live in the next. But the brain remembers, and sometimes all it wants is silence. A fire, a moment, to forget the mind games and just be. The legacy in our DNA. We've built cities that scrape the sky. We've split the atom, landed on the moon, uploaded our lives to clouds. And yet beneath all that, we're still them. Our DNA hasn't changed much since the Stone Age. Beneath our hoodies and smartphones, we carry the same genetic code that once guided hands to carve flint, to paint bison on cave walls, to cradle newborns beside fire. We are their children, not just in memory, but in molecule. The eyes that scan our screens evolved to spot danger in the brush. The heart that races before a speech once beat faster at the scent of a lion. The gut feeling before a risky decision, that's ancient instinct whispering. The voice of someone who survived just long enough to pass their blood forward. Fear of the dark, love of sweet things, the calming hush of water, the spike of tension in silence. These aren't quirks, they're echoes. We carry the legacy of those who made it and the scars of what they endured. Our bodies remember famine, so we store fat. We remember betrayal, so we hesitate to trust. We flinch at sudden movement, startle at loud noise, not because we're weak, but because our ancestors lived in a world where hesitation meant death. But modern life has added new layers to the old script. Enter epigenetics, the study of how life leaves fingerprints on our genes. Stress, diet, sleep, trauma. These don't just shape our days, they shape the way our genes express themselves. They don't rewrite our code, but they change the volume, turning some traits up, muting others. And what's more, those changes can echo forward. Your anxiety might not be just yours. It could be a shadow cast by a grandfather's war, a grandmother's hunger. Wounds passed not only through stories, but through switches in DNA. Our biology listens to joy, to grief, to every skipped meal, every sleepless night, every act of love. It adapts, not over centuries, but sometimes in a single lifetime. So when we feel lost in the noise of now, when we wonder who we really are, the answer may be, we are what remains. We are the archive. In every cell, we carry the story of campfires and migrations, of hunger and shelter, of fear and hope. We are walking libraries of ancient adaptation, wired for a world of danger, still trying to make sense of a world of deadlines and streetlights. And yet there's beauty in that, because it means we're not alone. Every breath, every heartbeat is shared with those who came before and those who will follow. Our DNA doesn't forget. It remembers the hunt, the dance, the loss, the love. It remembers where we came from and carries us forward, still becoming. Evolution in fast forward. We are no longer just adapting to the world, we are editing ourselves to fit it. For millions of years, evolution was slow, patient, brutal. It chose who lived, who died, who passed their genes onward, based on tooth and claw, sun and season. But now natural selection has taken a back seat. And in its place, something new, artificial selection, self-directed evolution. We've stepped out of the wild and into the lab. With tools like CRISPR, we can rewrite the code that took nature eons to craft. Snip a gene here, silence a mutation there. Alter the recipe for height, intelligence, resistance to disease. We're no longer waiting for chance. We're taking the pen from nature's hand. And it's not just genetics. We're merging with the machines we once built to serve us. Brain-computer interfaces now link thought to action in real time. A person can move a robotic limb with pure intent. The line between flesh and circuit blurs, and with every new breakthrough, we ask, where does the body end and the upgrade begin? We carry assistants in our pockets who never sleep. We build AI companions that comfort, advise, entertain, and learn. They remember our routines better than we do. They write our messages, finish our sentences, offer therapy at midnight. They don't have hearts, but they are beginning to understand ours. Soon the question may not be what can humans become, but what counts as human at all. If you showed a Stone Age hunter, man who flies in a metal bird, who speaks to invisible voices through a glowing stone, who survives infections that would have killed entire tribes, would he even recognize him as kin? Would he call us gods or strangers? Our biology is ancient, but our world is lightning fast, and the gap grows wider each day. We cure what once killed, we prevent what once devastated. We engineer crops, clone cells, grow organs in labs, and now we stand on the edge of something even more profound, the redesign of ourselves. But with that power comes unease. When we change our genes, whose vision of better are we following? When we build minds in silicon, do they dream like ours? When we give birth to bodies enhanced by code and steel, are they still us? We are evolving, not by accident, but by ambition. And that evolution doesn't wait for generations anymore. It updates like software. It installs like an app. So what does the future hold? Will we shed our frail shells entirely and become digital ghosts? Will we engineer empathy, compassion, courage, or erase the messy bits that made us human in the first place? We don't know. But what's certain is this. The story of humanity is no longer written only in blood and bone. It's being typed, coded, mapped. One breakthrough at a time. The flint-knappers and fire-starters would never have imagined this chapter. But in our eyes, tired from screens, wide with wonder, there's still a glint of something ancient. Curiosity, the same force that pushed us to tame fire, now drives us to reshape the fire within, the mirror of time. We look in the mirror today and see smartphones in hand, synthetic clothes on our backs, artificial light bouncing off walls of concrete and glass. Our world hums with electricity, bleeds data, and buzzes with constant connection. But if a human from 50,000 years ago stood beside us, would they recognize us at all? Physically, we haven't changed much. Our DNA is nearly identical. The same bones, the same blood, the same potential. But everything else, the way we live, love, work, think, eat and die, has morphed beyond recognition. We have become storytellers not around fires, but in pixels, hunters not of mammoths, but of meaning, gatherers not of roots, but of likes, followers, and fleeting validation. We are them, and yet not them. The tools we hold today would seem like magic. Our skyscrapers like mountains made by gods, our medicine like sorcery, and yet we still fear the unknown, still crave belonging, still carry the ancient echoes of flight or fight, of hunger, of wonder. Evolution didn't erase our past, it layered it. Beneath the noise of progress, our primal rhythm still beats. But something did shift. Evolution once crept, generation by generation. Now it leaps, coded in circuits, edited in labs, streamed in real time. We shape ourselves now. We sculpt minds with screens. We tweak genes. We build machines that think. We are speeding past the boundaries of biology, rewriting what it means to be human, and so the mirror cracks. When we ask, would they recognize us? The deeper question rises, do we recognize ourselves, and do we see the ancient flame still flickering in our dreams, or have we buried it under concrete routines? Have we outpaced our own instincts, overfed our minds, and underfed our souls? Are we building a future that honors where we came from, or are we leaving our ancestors behind? Maybe the story of humanity isn't just about tools or language or survival. Maybe it's about remembering. Remembering that we were once barefoot under the stars with no walls between us and the world. Remembering that silence once had meaning, that faces once held every answer, that life once pulsed to the rhythm of wind, water, and fee. We are a species in motion, but motion needs direction. Progress needs reflection. And in this mirror of time, between the faces of the past and the flicker of the future, we might still catch a glimpse of something ancient, something true. The question isn't just how far we've come, it's whether we're still becoming us.